I struggle to identify with many suggested political views and associations. And my main problem with just about every political offer that is given by nations, from communism to fascism to anything else in between, the problem with all of these different government systems is size, relevance to its people who are supposed to be subservient to it, whether it is anything. I've always regarded myself as apolitical and or anarchist. Now, I'm normally hesitant to say anarchist because most people do not understand it. Like this is what most people say about any political system. But anarchy is really not apolitical. It just means no rulers. And the key part with that is rulers are different to leaders. Leaders form in communities and societies naturally, and they are followed willingly. Rulers seek control over its people and basically don't care for them. They see them as what's the word I'm looking for right now? Having a mental blank. As things to be used, basically. Things to be used for their own personal gain. Now, no one wants to follow these types of people. Not if they really think about it. They might be bribed with certain policies and temptations of sorts of wealth of all sorts, but these people ultimately do not care for them. And this comes into play when our political systems are out of scale. And when I say out of scale, I mean the disparity or the distance or the disconnect between the leaders and the followers, between the chief and the lowest person within the chieftain. If there's not a connection socially, there's not going to be a very healthy function in the society. Now, any good system of government, any good tribe, any good order, any good nation should have a good connection from the top to the bottom, from the elder to the younger. If the people are not standing more or less beside their leader, he's not really a leader. Yeah, they might take a step back or behind, but ultimately they need to be standing in the same field. And what's important about this, or understanding how this function works and should work, is understanding something called Dunbar's number. And Dunbar asserted that nobody can truly know any more than but we have a set limit of how many people we can know and truly know. And this is a critical part of any functional family, tribe, order, or nation. So when you have a nation of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, there's no way that one leader can really have the best interest of every single one of these people. They might think they do if they are the most honest possible candidate for this political position, but seldom do they have that honour and honesty and even rarer is the one that maintains their integrity when they reach that level of power. Now, Dunbar's number can vary, and depending on various factors, it can vary quite a lot, but this number is, in all circumstances, from my understanding, always under 250 people. That is the greatest maximum example I've ever come across. It can be as little as 120. I've got my personal interpretation, and that is of 160, based on certain experiments I've done working in communities and things like that. When you take into consideration your social groups that may or may not be separate to your work employment groups, and then your own personal family. If these all differ, this number can be greater. However, if all these certain social groups have overlap, you might have a smaller number, but the smaller the number, also the stronger your connection, I believe. So there comes a point where the connection then becomes weak, and then there's a point where the connection is just not there anymore. And really knowing someone is not just knowing their name and a few facts about them, but you should be able to predict to a certain extent how they will behave in any given circumstance. And this is important, hugely important for tribe. If we think back to, I'm hesitant to use primitive situation, because primitive implies low tech. But the thing about primitive situation is it's a fundamental functions of a tribe, which exists in the most primitive situations, but also in advanced situations, but it might just be masked by multiple social factors. But something that occurs in its purest form in primitive situations is the fundamental workings of a tribe, and something that will inevitably come up when it comes to tribes and tribalism is conflict with other tribes. To some degree this is natural, and I'm just driving past my new boomer neighbours who've just cut down as much possible growth in their yard as possible. But conflict, and Dunbar's number when it comes to conflict with others has got a lot to do with your cooperation with your own. If you don't know your own tribe well enough to have a fairly predictable understanding of their behaviour, how can you trust them in battle? How can you expect to know that they will do the right thing and make the right choices and act the right way, unless you really know them? And do you really think you can know more than 200 people, let alone lead 200 people? There comes a point where your trust and your knowing is limited, and then beyond this is when sub-organisation or multiple or micromanagement comes into play. So you might have a tribe of say 160 people, anywhere between that 100 and 250 number, whatever it balances out to be. Then we might have multiple tribes working together with spokespeople of each tribe. Then we might have something like, say for example, Dunbar's number on a grander scale. If you have a spokesperson or a leader from every little family to make up a tribe, then you have a tribe that makes up a, say for example, if we use biological taxonomy, a greater group would be an order. So multiple tribes make up an order, which are the order itself would be made up of the chieftains of each tribe. So you might have up to, say, for example, I'm going to stick with my number of 160. You might have up to 160 tribes come together, meeting through 160 chieftains, say. Now, if you do the multiplication there, this is a huge group of people. We're talking about thousands of people now. So, this is how nationalism could work, and even this is how globalism could work, but it must start from organisation within the family and the household. The idea that democratic systems based on individuals voting is the best government we can possibly have is absurd. When you have family members within the same household potentially voting for conflicting parties, how is anyone expecting that this would make for a functional nation? Absolutely absurd. Individual votes should be abolished. Family votes should be what counts. If you're an individual who is not contributing to the future of your nation, why should you have any say in it? This is my opinion, and to me this is still anarchy of some sorts. Anarcho-tribalism, I guess it would be called. I wanted to share my thoughts on that because I definitely associate myself with tribalism. I do feel I'm a tribalist. I've had many people tell me that tribalism is basically National Socialism, and I don't totally disagree, but I am by no means a National Socialist, and I do not identify that way. I have no problem with National Socialism. I don't fully understand every little aspect of it, but I don't care to, because from the get-go the scale is too great to even bother trying to say this is something that should be implemented in any great political movement. So that's my thoughts on that. I'm going to leave it at that because it's pretty long already, and I'm trying to keep these videos short. The shorter they are, the more I'll do, and the more I do, the more I'll probably end up doing. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks for listening.